Hello everyone, I'm Freaky and welcome to the video. Ain't the Looney Tunes awesome? From their slapstick to their cartoon shenanigans, them trying to upstage the other, they are fantastic. I love Bugs Bunny, Daffy and Porky and so on and so on. But my second favourite cartoon cat is Sylvester. Sylvester is kind of like Wile E. Coyote and Elmer Fudd in a way, because he's always trying to chase down Tweety or trying to chase Speedy Gonzales, and he usually gets the raw end of the deal. But saying that, he is a lovable cat, and a funny one at that. He might not be no Tom from Tom and Jerry, but he's still a very funny cat. And usually he'd be teamed up with Tweety. That's the most iconic thing when it came to Sylvester. He's always teamed up with Tweety, but that's not usually the case. Sometimes he'd be teamed up with other characters, like Speedy or Porky, maybe 1 or 2 times with Elmer, or hell, sometimes he'd be great on his own. Again, even though he's well known with teaming up with Tweety, he's great with other characters and all by himself. And you guys probably know what's coming next. And yes, it's going to be a top 20 of my favourite Sylvester cartoons. Now, just to let you guys know, I haven't seen every single Sylvester cartoon. So if there are cartoons of Sylvester that you like but it wasn't on this list, it's most likely that I haven't seen that cartoon. Or maybe I didn't find it funny. But listen, this is all opinion based, and these cartoons are my experience of the character. And also, just to let you guys know, there won't be any Speedy Gonzales and Sylvester cartoons on this list, simply because, well, I haven't seen any of them. I mean, yeah, I've seen cartoons with Speedy and Daffy, but I can't remember a single Speedy Gonzales cartoon with Sylvester in it. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I remember Daffy and Speedy, but not Sylvester and Speedy. And I have heard that Speedy and Sylvester won some sort of award in one cartoon, but like I said, I haven't seen it. But like I said, these are all going to be cartoons that I remember and left an impact on me, and I also thought was funny. And if you guys want to tell me what your favourite Sylvester cartoon is, please let me know in the comments below. And so all that said, let's resume with the list. And the first one is A Mouse Taking Identity. Now, in this cartoon, Sylvester is with his son, Junior, and Hoppity the kangaroo. And when it came to Hoppity, Sylvester will always confuse him with a mouse, thinking that Hoppity is a giant mouse or something. And there was quite a few cartoons that I did like when it came to Sylvester and Hoppity. But I used to watch this all the time when I was a kid, when it was on VHS. And it's a three-way party with this. Hoppity is having fun with Sylvester, Sylvester is trying to impress his son, trying to capture Hoppity, and Sylvester's son looks up to his father and he sees him fail every single time against Hoppity. Now, some people will say that Hoppity isn't that good of a character, but you know what? In his cartoons with Sylvester, he is pretty good. And in this cartoon, I think my favourite part in this cartoon is when Sylvester is caught in a lion head, and Sylvester's son is hitting the lion over the head, and in turn, the teeth of the lion is hurting Sylvester, and it's funny. And then he gets a gun, shoots at the lion, and Sylvester says, yes, you saved me, but let's not try and save me ever again. That gave me a giggle, I liked it. Like I said, I do like the Hoppity and Sylvester cartoons, but this one left an impact on me, because I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is A Mouse Divide. Now, when it comes to this cartoon, the stork gives Sylvester and his mate a mouse for a baby instead of a kitten. And at first, Tom tries to eat the poor baby, and after trying to eat him again, the baby mouse says, "Daddy," and Sylvester falls in love with the baby, and he actually tries to be a good father. And the peak of fatherhood is when he protects his mouse son from other cats in the neighbourhood because they're trying to get into the house and eat the mouse. But Tom swats them every single time. And you know what? I like that. Usually it's Sylvester who gets the short end of the stick here, but in this case, it's the cat who gets the short end of the stick, and he's being a very protective father. My favourite part has always been the part where Sylvester is outsmarting the cats and protecting his son. I just thought that was heartwarming and funny. I just love this role reversal. It's funny, I highly recommend it. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Air Conditioned. Now in this cartoon, it's a team up with Elmer Fudd and Sylvester. And Elmer Fudd is trying to convince Sylvester to invest his fortune and the other cats in the neighbourhood is also trying to get their hands on Sylvester's money. And this episode is kind of like A Mouse Divided, but instead of trying to get a mouse, they're actually trying to get Sylvester's money. And I think my favourite part in this cartoon is the part when one of the cats dresses up as a salesman and the cat tries to sell them something. And instead of trying to get the money and convince them that this is a good vacuum cleaner, it actually breaks and the cat is like, oh. And without even trying to take the money, he says, well, I'm out here. So yeah, I mean, even the cat knows that he failed at this one. This is one of the few times that Elmer Fudd and Sylvester teamed up, and I think this actually might be the better one. And in this case, Elmer Fudd is actually trying to keep the other cats out. So it's kind of like a reverse, because the other cats are trying to get Sylvester's money. Sylvester just wants his money. For me, this was just loads of fun. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is 3 for 2. Now, when it comes to this cartoon, Sylvester isn't the main focus of the cartoon. The stars of this cartoon is two dogs. The big bulldog is Spike, and the small dog is called Chester. And basically, what happens in this cartoon is that a panther has escaped from the zoo, and it's in hiding somewhere, and these two dogs, Spike and Chester, is after Sylvester. Now, Spike is the big tough bulldog, and Chester the small dog looks up to Spike. And when Spike goes to beat up Sylvester, he finds what he thinks is Sylvester's tail, but he doesn't know that tail belongs to the panther that escaped from the zoo. And the whole gag is that every time Spike goes to beat up who he thinks is Sylvester is the panther, and Spike is either scared out of his mind or gets beaten up, and he comes out looking like a weakling, because every time Chester goes to look inside what happened, he can only see Sylvester, and Spike was the only one who meets up with the panther, and Chester thinks that Spike is afraid of Sylvester. And you know what? That's a good gag. It's kind of like when Sylvester mistakens Hippity the kangaroo for a mouse. So for the dogs, it was a panther, and when it came to Sylvester and Hoppity, Sylvester mistakened Hoppity as a mouse. I really like this gag. And I think my favourite part in this cartoon is when Spike the bulldog says to Sylvester, go on, scratch me. Go on, I dare you to scratch me. And the panther scratches Spike the bulldog, and he goes into slices falling down. That was a classic. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Snow Business. Now in this cartoon, Sylvester and Tweety are good friends, and they are snowbound within the cabin. And while Sylvester is trying to find food, all he finds is birdseed. So he gets the idea of eating Tweety, and Tweety is oblivious of what Sylvester is trying to do. And then you have this other character, which is a mouse. And this mouse is like starving, and he tries to eat Sylvester, and doing all sorts of stuff to try and eat him. And Tweety is still oblivious to Sylvester trying to eat him. So the mouse is trying to eat Sylvester, and Sylvester is trying to eat Tweety, which is oblivious to everything. So if I had to choose one part in this cartoon which was funny, I think my favourite part is when Sylvester gets his hand stuck on the stove, and his hand's on fire, and he goes to the window, opens it, and he puts his hand in the snow, and it all melts away. I thought it was hilarious. Sylvester can't catch a break in this cartoon. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Catty Cornered. Now in this cartoon, Rocky has stolen Tweety Pie, which is worth $1 million. And so, Sylvester tries to get Tweety, and Tweety thinks that Sylvester is trying to save him. And Sylvester gets outsmarted by Rocky and his partner in crime, Nick, every single time when he tries to get Tweety. And there are two parts in this cartoon that made me laugh. Number one, it's usually Tweety that says, I did draw a pretty cat. But this time, it was Rocky and Nick who says, hey boss, I thought I draw a pretty cat. And Rocky says, you did draw a pretty cat. I thought that was just funny. And then Sylvester lifts himself up with a beam and a rope. He pulls himself up, gets onto the building, goes into the room, grabs Tweety, runs downstairs, goes outside, and the beam lands straight on him. And then Tweety says, oh, the pointy tat fell down. And then Rocky says, yep, the pointy tat fell down. That was funny. Loads of fun. I highly recommend it. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Tweety SOS. In this cartoon, Sylvester is after Tweety on a ship, and Sylvester's gotta get past Granny, and Sylvester is after Tweety all over the ship. It's all around funny. And my favourite part in this cartoon is when Sylvester is sick on the ship. You know, seasick. And he turns green. And Tweety offers him some pork. and Sylvester gets even more sick, and he goes to the sick bay and he has some medicine to fix himself up. And then the second time, Tweety brings out a picture of a boat, and he makes Sylvester sick again. And this time, Tweety goes to the nurse's office, and Tweety changes the medicine, and now Sylvester can spit little mini bombs or something. And you know what? I thought that was hilarious. And the last scene, where Granny hits him and he explodes and he flies up into the air, and the captain says, I thought I saw a putty tat. And Granny and Tweety says, you did see a putty tat. This was a fun cartoon. It is definitely one of the best Sylvester and Tweety cartoons, and Granny is great in this as well. Good times, man. Good times. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is a tiebreaker, and they're basically the same cartoon, and they both have Hoppity in them. Now, in this cartoon, Sylvester thinks that Hoppity is a giant mouse, and he's trying to beat Hoppity. But every time Sylvester tries to take down Hoppity, he's thrown out of the house, and he bumps into the dog. And the dog says, listen, you've got to go back in there and do your job. A cat is supposed to capture mice. And this gag is funny because the dog thinks a small mouse is beating Sylvester, and the dog throws him back in the house every single time. And this happens in both cartoons. And yeah, there are some differences when it comes to these cartoons. It's not exactly the same, but it has the same premise and different outcomes. And I think my favourite part in these cartoons is when the dog gets fed up and says, you know what, I'm going to go in the house and get that mouse myself. And the dog gets either scared off or he gets beaten up by Hoppity. And so, that is my favourite part within these two cartoons. It's kind of like that episode where the two dogs are trying to capture Sylvester, but instead they run into a panther instead. So in that cartoon they mistake a panther for a cat, and in this cartoon they mistake a kangaroo for a mouse. Loads of fun, love this episode. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Hide and Go Tweet. In this cartoon, Sylvester is trying to capture Tweety like usual, and Tweety hides in a potion, and Tweety drinks some of it, and it turns Tweety into a sort of like giant monster sort of bird. And Sylvester is running away from Tweety, and the thing is, he doesn't know that giant monster is Tweety. And while Sylvester isn't looking, Tweety turns into that giant monster, and he turns back into his small size again. So Sylvester is chasing Tweety, and then Tweety starts chasing Sylvester, and it goes back and forth throughout the entire cartoon. So it's a reverse of what usually happens. It's like if the Roadrunner started chasing after Wile E. Coyote, or Jerry Mouse trying to capture Tom. And my favourite moment is at the end of the cartoon. Sylvester wakes up from the dream that he's been having throughout the entire cartoon, and then when he sees Tweety, he starts screaming like a madman, saying, help, save me, he's a killer, he's gonna eat me, help! He gets scared of Tweety, and it was just all a dream. That had me giggling. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Ain't She Tweet. In this cartoon, Sylvester is trying to get to Tweety, but in order to do that, Sylvester has to get past loads of dogs that's in the yard, and there are loads of dogs in this yard, and Sylvester has to try and figure out a way how to get past all these dogs, and that in itself is funny. The fact that he has to get past loads of dogs in order to get to Tweety. I mean, come on, that's bravery and stupidity all in one. I mean, give him some credit for not giving up. And my favourite part in this cartoon is when Sylvester is on these giant still things, and he's all the way in the air on these giant stills, and he's walking towards Tweety. And when he gets to Tweety, Tweety gives the dog some tools so they can cut down the stills. And slowly, they start destroying the stills, and Sylvester's going down slowly. And Sylvester tries to make it back to the gate, and he just makes it. And then an old man comes past and says, oh, the poor putty tat, locked out of his own yard. I'll put you back, putty tat. And he chucks Sylvester over the fence where the dogs are. That part had me in stitches. Loads of fun, love it. And with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Tweety and the Beanstalk. Now, what I like about this cartoon is that Tweety is the size of Sylvester. And when it comes to the size difference, you can understand why Sylvester wants Tweety. I mean, come on, Tweety will last Sylvester like a month or something. So if I was Sylvester, I'd probably go after Tweety as well. And when you think of Tweety and the Beanstalk, and how I describe Tweety, yeah, it's basically a turn on Jack and the Beanstalk. And there's this one part in the cartoon at the end I don't think would be too PC these days. And it's basically a Chinese Tweety bird. That'll make some people's eyes roll. Anyways, Sylvester is trying to get to Tweety's cage that is far up into the air. And my favourite part in this cartoon is when Sylvester is trying to get to Tweety on a bottle cork. He fires the cork at Tweety's cage and he misses. And then he gets trapped within an owl and the cork has trapped Sylvester in it. And he stamps on the cork, well, jumping on it. And he gets free and the cork falls to the ground and it goes right onto a gun. And the gun shoots Sylvester back up into the hole again, and the cork traps him inside it again. So he makes a hole out of it and uses a rope to go down. I thought that old part was really funny. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Satan's Waiting. In this cartoon, Sylvester is trying to capture Tweety as usual, but in this case, he dies. And Sylvester goes to hell. And the dog equivalency to Satan tells Sylvester that he can't move on until all 9 lives have come down here to hell. And so the dog goes to Sylvester and tries to egg him on to carry on trying to capture Tweety. And along the way, each and every time Sylvester loses one of his lives and one of Sylvester's souls goes to hell. And I think my favourite way how he dies is when he gets scared to death by a big massive dog ornament or something. And I think my favourite moment in this cartoon is when Sylvester says, "Suffer and succotash, I've only got one more life left." And he doesn't go after Tweety anymore, and he tries to keep himself safe in a bank vault. And then 2 robbers come along, try to break in, and they blow themselves up, and the bank robbers and Sylvester goes to hell. I swear, Sylvester doesn't have any luck in this cartoon, but still, a very fun cartoon to watch. And come on, we all know he's going to be in the next cartoon. We all know this is played up for laughs. So yeah, Sylvester's fine. And so with all said and done, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Tweety in Gift Wrapped. And in this cartoon, it's Christmas. And Sylvester opens up one of his presents. And it was a rubber mouse. And Sylvester is happy with this. And one of the other presents was Tweety. And so one thing leads to another. Sylvester's trying to get Tweety. And sometimes Granny stops him. And my favourite gag in this cartoon is when Tweety says, "Oh, I'm not your present, there's yours." And there's this big massive box present. And then Sylvester puts Tweety back in the cage, goes to the present and goes, "Suffer and succotash, what a present." He opens it and a dog pops out and swallows him. And Granny comes along and saves Sylvester. That in my opinion was a good gag. And a very good Christmas episode. And there was this other gag where Sylvester dresses up as a Native American and Tweety dresses up as a cowboy. And Tweety pulls a gun on Sylvester and it's one of those cork firing guns. And Sylvester says, "Okay, Happy, I'm pulling your cork." He pulls it and the gun fires at Sylvester. I mean, it was funny. And then Granny comes in and says, "Haha, you didn't count on Pocahontas, did you, Geronimo?" This was a good episode. I really love it. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next cartoon is Room and Bird. In this cartoon, Tweety and Sylvester are in this hotel, and they have to be very, very quiet so they won't get caught by the doorman. And you're not allowed to have pets within the hotel, and that's what he's looking out for. And while Sylvester is trying to get Tweety, they know they have to be quiet, otherwise they're going to be in deep trouble. And Sylvester is doing his usual stick trying to get Tweety, and then you get Hector the bulldog that comes in later. And there was this one part where the doorsman hears Tweety, Sylvester and Hector fighting, and the animals stop fighting and they dress up as a human. And when the doorsman does come in, Tweety tells the doorsman off. And there's this old gag where the animals are going into different doors, like they're up the corridor and they're going into another door, and they come out of another door and then they come out of another door. I love that old gag. But I think my absolute favourite part is when the doorman tells everybody in the hotel that somebody has brought pets in the hotel, and he demands everybody to take out all their pets, and all different sorts of animals come out. There was dogs, there was a freaking elephant. How the hell did that get in? There was a gorilla. Like, there was all different types of animals in the hotel, and they run over him. That was a funny gag. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Tweet and Lovely. Now in this cartoon, Sylvester is up to his old stick of trying to get Tweety, but there's a little bit of a twist. Sylvester goes all Wally Coyote trying to capture Tweety, using robots, using invisibility paint, using smoke bombs, creating rain clouds, and it's funny, every single time they backfire on him. Basically, Sylvester's trying to get past this dog that's protecting Tweety's home, and the dog stops Sylvester every single time. This cartoon is relaxing but at the same time funny at the same time. Now, all the jokes in this cartoon is great, and I think my favourite gag in this cartoon is when Sylvester creates a liquid that turns into thunderclouds, and he's going to use this on the dog, so he won't come out of his kennel for weeks. And so Sylvester gets his potion thing that creates bad weather, and then Sylvester trips, and all the liquid goes up, and it gets dark in the room, and it starts thunder and lightning and showers, and Sylvester's trying to get away from the storm as the lightning is striking him. I thought that was hilarious. And so, well, that's said and done, let's resume to the next one. And the next one is Tweety in A Bird in a Guilty Cage. Now, this cartoon sort of reminds me of the time when Daffy was in a shopping mall, and Porky, which was a police officer, which was trying to capture and arrest Daffy. And this cartoon sort of has the same feel, but in this case, Sylvester is trying to get into the shop and capture Tweety. And the reason why I like this cartoon so much is because, I mean, come on, it's a freaking mall. Well, kinda. And they go to all these sections like the toy area, the hat area, you know, that sort of thing. And my favourite part in this cartoon is the ending. Sylvester thinks that he's eaten Tweety, who was coming down these pipes, but instead it was actually some TNT, which Tweety himself actually sent. And Sylvester swallows the TNT, thinking that he's swallowed Tweety, and he leaves the shop, pleased with himself, and he turns a corner, and the TNT explodes, and Sylvester says, "Well, birds are off my diet list. That last one upset my stomach," and the cartoon ends there. That part made me giggle. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Canned Feud. In this cartoon, Sylvester's owners have gone on holiday and he's locked in the house. He starts panicking because his owners won't be back for 2 weeks. So he tries to find some food, which he does, but the problem is he can't find a can opener, and it's a mouse that has the can opener. And every time Sylvester asks the mouse for the can opener, the mouse just messes with Sylvester. Sylvester will try other means to open a can. He would try and get the can opener back for the mouse, and the cycle will continue. I mean, the thing is, the mouse is a pest, and cats are supposed to chase mice. So really, Sylvester is justified on getting the mouse. Anyways, my favourite gag in this cartoon is when Sylvester puts some TNT in the wall. He steps back, and the mouse brings out a bag, and he blows it up, and then Sylvester goes back to the hole, puts his head in it, and the TNT explodes, and he comes out, and he's all bald on his top half. Totally got a giggle from that. And my other favourite part is when a piano drops on Sylvester. That was funny. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is Birds Anonymous. Now, fun fact when it comes to this cartoon won an award for Best Animated Short. And this cartoon also talks about addiction, because in this cartoon, Sylvester is after Tweety, as usual, and Sylvester tries to eat Tweety, and another cat stops Sylvester, and this other cat explains that eating the bird is wrong, and there are other people who can help you get over your addiction of birds. And so Sylvester tries his best to not go after Tweety anymore, but Sylvester's addiction to birds keeps coming back. And Sylvester is trying, he really is, to overcome his addiction. And you know what? This is a good episode. Addiction can be anything, and if you have an addiction, you can understand Sylvester's pain. Anyways, my favourite part in this cartoon is when Sylvester gets hit by a plunger, and he actually thanks the cat who hits him with the plunger and smiles about it. I think that was one of the few times Sylvester thanked somebody doing that to him. And so with that said, let's move on to the next one. And the next cartoon is Back Alley Uproar. Now in this cartoon, Elmer Fudd is trying to get to sleep, and then Sylvester comes along, and Sylvester starts singing, and this annoys Elmer. So he tries everything to stop Sylvester singing, and this is one of the few times Sylvester has teamed up with Elmer. I can recall 2 others, but I think there could be more. I'm not really sure. But one of my favourite moments in this cartoon is when Sylvester puts on some boots, and he's going up and down them going la 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 la, and goes do 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 la 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 do 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 cha 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 do 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 cha cha cha. Okay, now you know he's doing it on purpose. And there was this one time where he sang to Elmer and made him go to sleep, and then a few seconds later, it was an one-man army band and wakes up Elmer. I really enjoy this cartoon, I really do. And so that said, let's move on to the next one. And number 1 is The Last Hungry Cat. Now, this cartoon is similar to Birds Anonymous, where Tom was addicted to birds, and it looks like he was about to crack. But in this case, in this cartoon, Sylvester actually feels guilty that he thinks that he killed Tweety. And this cartoon sort of has like a Hitchcock feel to it, with the shadow of a bear at the beginning and the end of the cartoon. And sometimes the narrator would sometimes talk to Sylvester. And throughout the cartoon, the idea that he thinks he killed Tweety weighs down on his conscience. He's drinking coffee, he's smoking, he can't sleep. This cartoon isn't the funniest, and Birds Anonymous as the bear message. But for me, I just like this cartoon more because of the guilt Sylvester has for thinking he killed Tweety. And I love the atmosphere to this cartoon as well, especially with that bear at the beginning and the end of the cartoon, and the soundtrack's great. Although you could say Birds Anonymous and The Last Hungry Cat are a mirror of each other. One does addiction, one does guilt. But this cartoon is my favourite of the two. So yeah, well, that's said and done, let's move on to the final one, and that is Zero. And Zero is a tiebreaker, Claws for Alarm and Scaredy Cat. Now, if you guys was to ask me which one of these is my absolute favourite, it would definitely be Scaredy Cat. Now, believe it or not, there is also another cartoon that goes with these two, and all three of these cartoons is a combination of Sylvester and Porky. And in each and every one of these cartoons, Sylvester is the one who gets the raw end of the deal when it comes to these cartoons, because he's the one who's getting attacked, he's the one who always saves Porky from being killed by some mice or something. Now the third one, which was about Martians, I thought that cartoon was a little bit silly. It didn't really pique my interest because Porky seems more oblivious to the dangers around him in that cartoon. But when it comes to these two cartoons, Scaredy Cat and Claws for Alarm, it feels more believable, because in Claws for Alarm, Porky never figures out that he's in danger and he thinks Sylvester is the one who's messing about. But when it comes to Scaredy Cat, Porky in this one thinks that Sylvester is just messing about. But at the end of Scaredy Cat, Porky finds out that Sylvester was telling the truth. He finds out that it was the mice who was doing all this scary stuff, and he believes Sylvester. And that is why Scaredy Cat is my favourite cartoon between these two. The atmosphere is good, the comedy's good, and in all three of these cartoons, even though Sylvester is scared, he tries his damnedest to save Porky every single time. And my favourite part within these two cartoons, number 1, Claws for Alarm, is when Sylvester steals a gun for the mice and shoots a gun within the wall, and he's up all night protecting Porky. I just thought that was sweet. But my favourite episode, I'll be honest, I loved every single part within this cartoon. Sylvester's reactions, his protection of Porky, the comedy, him going in to save Porky. It is just a fantastic cartoon. It doesn't always have to be Tweety and Sylvester. Sylvester can be with Tweety or Elmer or Porky, or he can just be all by himself. Oh, he can also be with Speedy Gonzales, but I never really got around to watch any of those cartoons with Speedy and Sylvester. And if you ask me, if Sylvester was always, I mean always, with Tweety, it would be really boring if it was with Tweety every single time. So I am glad there are cartoons of Sylvester where he's teaming up with other toons or he's by himself. So really, Sylvester is a good mixed bag. And the thing is, he can be the predator, he can be the victim, he can be the protector, and most of the time he's just doing his job as the cat to catch mice. I mean, it's nothing personal. And when it comes to Tweety and Sylvester, he is the predator, going after a pet bird. So he gets what's coming to him. So I really do love the mixed bag when it comes to Sylvester. He's kind of like Daffy Duck in a way. Well, kind of sorta. But in this case, he's either being chased or he's chasing. And you know what? I really do love Sylvester. He is definitely in my top 5 Looney Tunes characters. He can be a scaredy cat, he can be a predator, he's great with other toons, he's great by himself, and he's great around Tweety. He's loads of fun, I love him. He's probably my second favourite cat next to Tom. And I highly recommend you guys go and check out his cartoons. So, what do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Is there a Looney Tunes cartoon that you like that revolves around Sylvester? Is there a Sylvester cartoon that's not on here? Which one do you like, Sylvester or Tweety? Please let me know in the comment section below, and let's get a discussion going. I'm Freaky. Peace out. And please don't forget to check out my other social medias. Please go and check out my alternative video platforms, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Twitch, and please come and hang out on my Discord server. We can play games, have a movie night or a series night, or you can watch me play a few games. And if you guys have any suggestions of any videos you want me to react to, or any video ideas in general, you can tell me on my Discord. I'm also on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and Paula. I'm on Locals, Tumblr, Minds, and if you guys want to support me, please go and check out my Subscribestar. It's like Patreon but better. All these things are in the description box below, so please go and check them out and subscribe to them. I'm Geek Freak. Peace out.